Bringing you ideal content for your spiritual and relational work is our mandate. So, dear one, subscribe to this channel and like this message for us. You are a blessing having watched this.
The book of Job, chapter 42, verse 5, the 42nd chapter of Job, the 5th verse. And I seeth thee. We've been examining opinions of God that has created superstition within the Christian community and within men's knowledge of God. And you know, many people's opinion of God came from superstitious beliefs. Things that people told you about God, things you heard about God, or even things you yourself imagine to be God. You know, in our minds sometimes we have a mindset of how God should be. In our minds we create, parameters for what God is, who God is, what God can do, what God cannot do. We just create our own God within the figment of our imaginations, which is not consistent with who God really is. So in Job 42 verse 5, Brother Job, after 41 chapters of making noise, now said, all I heard of thee was by the hearing of the ear or rumor, but now my eye seeth thee. Now that word, hearing of the ear, is the word Shema in the Hebrew, S-H-E-M-A, Shema, S-H-E-M-A. It means to hear a report or a rumor. Which means, Brother Job, all of his knowledge of God in 42 chapters were all rumor based. Now, how many of you want people to know you based on rumor? I don't think anybody wants that. How many of you want people's opinion of you to be based on what people are saying about you? I don't think anybody wants that. You want people to know you for who you are. And if you're a very smart person, you don't draw conclusions on people based on what you hear. You want to meet them one-on-one and experience them for yourself. You don't want to just run with what the people are saying. You want to experience people by yourself. So, God doesn't want also to be known by rumor. He wants you to know him for who he is. Now, look at what Job said about God in Job chapter 1, verse 5. Job chapter 1, verse number 5. And it was so when the days of their feasting were gone about that Job sent and sanctified them and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, pay attention, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Based on that, Job was having night vigils. And when you see him praying all night, you conclude he knows God. But this guy is just doing all night based on assumptions, based on rumor, based on fear. It may be, maybe my children have seen, to avoid disaster befalling them, all night prayer. So most vigils are born out of assumptions and they are born out of superstitions. And that's why most vigils sounds like the children of Baal crying for Baal. Baal, 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 Baal from morning till evening. And Elijah will say, cut yourselves with knife. They carry knife and cut themselves. Elijah will say, oh, shout harder. Maybe your God has traveled. Most times when you see so-called Christians carrying out their vigils, their fasting and prayer, they are not different from those descendants of the Baal generation. And the fact that somebody is doing vigils every Friday or every week doesn't mean he knows God. Some of us are full of religious activity emanating from fear. He offered sacrifices continually, assuming that his children had sinned. Assuming. So, fasting and prayer, offering of sacrifices, promoted or activated or motivated by assumptions. Look at Job chapter 1, the 27th verse. Job chapter 1, 27. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. Job 1:20, sorry. Job chapter 1, verse number 20. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped. Oh, brother, the guy is a worshiper. When he worships God, he lies down on the floor. Tears and catarrh comes out of his nose because of the intensity of humility and brokenness. Because until the alabaster box is broken, the perfume cannot come out. So he is broken before God in tears, and he's lying and weeping. And this is a man with the fear of God. Give me the next verse. That Job chapter 1 verse 21. And said, look at the sincerity of all of those his operations. Naked, it is when a man speaks, you know what is motivating his action, right? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth says, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. What hypocrisy. What are you blessing him for? He gave and took. What's the big deal there? He gave and he took. So now Job is accusing God of taking. He gave and he took. So God is like a spoilt boy. When he's angry with you, he collects everything. When he's happy, he gives to you. All right, so that's the picture Job has painted here. And that statement was from error. Job was a self-righteous fellow. I repeat, Job was a self-righteous fellow who was all about what you do or what you didn't do. But after 41 chapters of noise, he admits, I have heard of you. Everything I said about God is rumor. Don't take me serious. But now mine eye seeth thee. Pay attention. Now my eye seeth thee is the word Ra. R-A-A-H in the Hebrew. Ra is a direct revelation, while Shema is a third-party information. I have heard of thee by the Shema of the ear. I have heard of you by a third-party information. But now mine eye seeth thee, Ra. I have a direct revelation of who you are. What you heard about someone who you never met the person, that's what we call a third-party reportage. So Job, for many years of his life, he didn't know God. Yet he was attending church. He was carrying olive oil all over, different pockets to service. He had a prayer shawl that he wears whenever prayer was going on. And he had the mantle of the man of God, where the man of God sweated and sweated on the mantle for impartation. He was always attending feet washing services. In fact, he even organized one in his house as the priest of his house. The things he heard about God. Now, he must have passed those things to his children. And many of us grew up like that. Our revelation of God is what we heard from our father, our mother, the testimonies people told in church. Whether those testimonies were correct or not, whether they were fabricated and arranged or not, you just said, based on that testimony, God must function like that. And they gave us formulas. And we adopted those formulas as our third party or our mediums of knowing God. Not knowing that in the New Testament, we don't know God through mediums. We know God directly in Christ Jesus. Pay attention.
We promised you a power-packed content here, and we surely delivered. So, please like and share this message for us. Also, hit that subscribe button below for more knowledge for your desktop.